So, August 13th, 2021, for those of you who are counting, this is the 22nd meeting of this semester. So we are getting, there's only 24, we only have 12 weeks. So we are getting to the end quickly. Interesting bits. I thought this meme was kind of funny. Gentleman walks up to a car, says, "I'm a computer expert." The person inside says, "Oh yeah, name 100 operating systems." And he replies, "Linux. That's on me. I set the bar too low." And that's about right. You can look at Windows. Windows has, if you go all the way back, you have DOS. So Windows maybe has, 20 or so variants, if you want to call it. XP, Vista, however many they had. Linux is everybody has their own Linux flavor. So it's pretty. He may in fact be an expert. I just thought that was cute. That was posted in one of the forums that I monitor. We had the Audacity saga. We heard some of it earlier this semester. Remember, Audacity has been an open source piece of code for audio capture and playing around with audio files. They've walked back a little bit of what they did this semester. If you go back a few meetings, man, I'm stumbling today. You'll see some more about Audacity and some of the phrasing they did. They've walked back a bit of it. They've kind of walked back their error checking. They're not going to be spying on you quite as bad anymore, and they are not going to be keeping your IP address around, and they're allowing children under 13 to use Audacity, which didn't actually make any sense to me to begin with. So they've made some changes, and the question is that better? Have they gotten back on the good side? So this is the article from the same place that published the original. Audacity is now spyware, remove it, and they're a bit skeptical. They do present the company's position, but they, are very skeptical. And this is really a fun article to kind of read. And you notice that they're still campaigning for a fork. And that's one of the problems with an open source system. If you get a viable fork, if you irritate enough of you can get little forks all the time, little schisms. Let's call them schisms instead of forks to get ourselves away from the GitHub mentality of forks are good. You get a schism, a division in your community. If it's a little one, or there's a lot of just bit players, people who aren't well involved with the development, that's okay. You can't please everyone all the time, and everyone always has the ability to use the open source repositories the way they want. The problem is when you irritate or anger a large group of your audience, what happens is you get real forks. You get real schisms, code that's maintained. You lose some of your external developers. And there's actually a Tenacity fork that we showed last time that is based off of 3.02, which does not have any there's no reporting back IP addresses for any reason. In 3.02, there's no networking capabilities in Audacity in 3.02. So the Tenacity fork, I believe, is based off of 3.02, and they've kind of lost some of their high-value external contributors and developed a competitor from within their own community. And there's lots of things here that it's kind of interesting, and a lot of this is not necessarily as outrageous as they make it be, but that's outrage is a business. Anyway, so the question is, if I can find the slides again. So that's kind of where they're standing. They're trying to make nice with the community. Unfortunately, the cows are already out of the barn, as my grandfather would say. So they've given themselves at least a public relations nightmare, gotten themselves a competitor, and irritated a large portion of their community. And then if you look at it a little bit more closely, they also implemented a CLA. And I thought this was interesting in and of itself because a CLA is a contributor license agreement, and it sets out the terms by which they can take your code and use it incorporated it into the open source environment. So if you don't have a CLA, you're essentially contributing the code under the existing license. That's kind of the expectation. If you have a CLA, the CLAs will sometimes ask for you to sign over the copyright. This one doesn't actually ask you to sign over the copyright, but it does say that you're giving them access to do whatever they want with your copywritten code. You can still do whatever you want with your code, but you're also giving them the ability to do whatever they want with the copywritten code. And the important thing about that is only the person who has the right to exercise copyright on that code, right, the person who owns the code, they're the only ones that can change the licensing terms. So Audacity is considering they're now currently GPL version 2, I believe. They want to make a step to GPL version 3. Well, there's no migration path from version 2 to version 3 in the license itself, so they actually have to exercise copyright on that. In general, that's not hard to get your community to agree to go from GPL version 2 to GPL version 3. GPL version 2 is old. It doesn't have this migration path. It doesn't allow them to update for newer licenses and better inner workings. GPL version 3 is generally considered a better license. So that's probably not a big run. But if you read closer, what they want to do in the future is do something called dual licensing. If you own the copyright of the code, or if you can control the copyright of the code, if you have the right to do what you want with the code, which is essentially what the CLA is giving them, then you have the right to release it under any copyright. So, or under any license. So even if the code is GPL version 3, somebody who has that code continues to have the right to exercise that GPL code. But you can, as a company, do something like dual licensing where you give them permissions without you give them proprietary permissions. You can release it as proprietary. You can release it however you want if you own the copyright. It doesn't change the copyright on previous versions of the code or on simultaneous versions of the code, but it does give you this outlet to perhaps make money, right? You can do a dual licensing if you look up Qt. The Qt company, or Qt company, I guess is the way it's supposed to be pronounced, but they're an interface builder. They have a dual license. It's GPL code. If you want to use their code commercially without paying them a fee, you have to do it under the terms of the GPL. For a lot of people, that's just fine, right? All that means is when you release the code, you have to release your code, the source of your code as well, in a compatible open source license. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to release your code, you can go to them and pay them money, and they will give you a GPL-free version of the code that you can use and embed in your products. So they can make money off it. It's not a bad thing. Making money is not a bad thing. But if you've contributed under the terms of the GPL version 2 with the idea that this will always be free, you may not be happy if Audacity is now taking your code and selling it without making it open source, because GPL version 2 implies open source. So CLAs matter. It's always good to get a CLA because it does actually define. It is sometimes good to get a CLA because it does actually define the terms. And if you're a company, it's really good to have a CLA because then you're protecting yourself legally from a lot of things you can do. But you do have to look into these things, and it's not necessarily benign. For these people, they're trying to go from GPL version 2 to GPL version 3. That's probably benign, but it may not be it may not be satisfactory to the people who contributed under GPL version 2 to allow them to make it proprietary and release people from the necessity of releasing their code. So sorry, that was a little bit long-winded, but I thought that was kind of, from my standpoint, this passes for interesting and fun bits. Calendar, we're going to go through this quickly because I do want to get onto our presentations relatively quickly. Rainbow grades, everything is up to date except for the last status update that's still being looked at. But everything else is up to date, and that includes all the bonus sessions that I'm aware of. So please take a good look at your stuff, right? There's only two status updates that still need to be graded. One of them is due today, right? Or it's for today, it's due Monday at midnight or 11:59 p.m. Those are the only two status updates that are left. If you need a status update, make sure you get those in. All the bonus sessions are up that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean there aren't errors. It doesn't mean you can't go in and view the remote recordings and still get credit. But everything that I am aware of is now in there. So if it doesn't match what you think, then you have to contact me and let me know. After 8:20, we're going to be in grading mode. So any of this stuff that is due before then, get to me before 8:20 because you know it now. You have all the information. I'm not going to be happy if, as I'm putting in grades, I get emails from you guys saying, "Hey, I think you missed a status update, or you missed an attendance way back in July," right? We got to push on through because grades are due. That's kind of poetic, really. And again, 20th is the end. We are 1 week out, halfway through the wrap-up period. Okay, so the presentation schedule, you guys know it. You can see it there if you forget where you are. If you really forget where you are, this is who's going today: YACS, Dorm Design, Graph, Foundry, Automatic Door Control, Open Data Science for All, Social, IBM, Art, EOT. Well, the AI stress test kind of people. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on what ART stands for. That's today. Tuesday, our next meeting is, these are the people that are going. Make sure you know who you are. Make sure you know where you're going in the order. And Friday, we're going to try to wrap it up with a short session. I am reserving some time just in case things go horribly wrong on another day. We do encourage everybody to come. We encourage you to come here in person. And so far, we've been giving away Call for Code t-shirts. We'll see what we can do next week. We're going to try to keep this going. Other things. This is your last status update, right? This is the 8th status update, is today's status update. After that, the only thing we have left is a final commit summary. Okay, if you remember, we did a mid-year commit summary that was optional. And if you submitted it, we looked at it, and we told you roughly where we thought you stood with regard to your number and quality of commits. The final commit summary is not optional. Okay? It's going to count towards your open source contributions grade. It's not a lot towards your open source contributions grade, but the important thing is if you don't submit it, then one, you lose some points right off the bat, and two, we have to search, assuming we know what your GitHub ID is, and you only committed under that ID, and if there's 36 branches that we find on your project, that we find the correct branches that you contributed to, which isn't necessarily trivial, without downloading the entire repository ourselves, right? We've got a grading problem. So your final commit summary does two things. One, right off the bat, it gets you some points. And two, it lets you make sure that we hit everything you want us to regard while we're grading, okay? So you should be giving me points for allowing you to submit it. But instead, I'm giving you points to help yourself. You can't get any better than that. Right? That's like going to the restaurant and they pay you to sit down. It's just free money. Anyway, we can't give you late days, right? Because, was there a question online? Okay, we can't give you late days, right? Why can't we give you late days? Because grading's due, right? This is as late as we can give you. Give us links, make it easy for us. If we have to look a lot, we're going to miss stuff, almost guaranteed. What I recommend you do, particularly for those who did an interim solution, is just take your interim one and submit it today. Not today, well, not right now because I forgot to open it up. But I will open it up at the end of class, submit it today, your interim one, that gets you something, and then add to it before Friday. That way, if you completely blow it up, but you had a good interim report, you're good, right? So anyway, that's my recommendation. Last semester or last summer, I only gave till 6 p.m. on Friday, but I'm going to give you all the way to midnight. We're going to be grading starting Saturday. So, get these things in. I didn't get the normal message about course evaluations, so I don't know when they went out. But I'm looking through my notes. They should be out now, or they should be closing up soon. It is actually something we look at. So if you haven't filled out your course evaluation for this course, please fill it out. Please be kind, but please fill it out. But be honest. We do need to make things better, and we try every time. So keep it up. And then after that, just present if you're presenting, and otherwise just keep working. We'll get it going. Here's the attendance. This is to get into venue, and give me just a second, and I will bring up the venue link as well. And then you guys can log in, and I'll give you to 152 once I get this thing up to get your thing in, and then while we're doing that, we'll get our next presenters up and running. Okay, this is this one. All right, so here's the check-in. All right, so here's, this one in the corner here is the link to venue, and then the big one in the center is our verification code. So get that up, get that done. In the meantime, I'm going to assume that you guys can all get to venue, and I'm going to go down to the next slide. And what did I do? Here we go. Here's today's groups. We're going to start off with YACS, Dorm Design, Graph, Foundry, ADC, OpenDS for All, Social, and then IBM, the IBM project on artificial intelligence and methods to fool it. If you're going to watch the presentations, this QR code and this link, can one of the coordinators pop that link into the chat? That will get you to a form you can fill out. That form will help us evaluate, or will let you help us evaluate the presentations. We recommend you guys stick around for these. They're pretty good. And I know it makes a long day, but if you stick around for them and you fill out the forms, everybody's going to be happier in the end. Yax, are you guys around? All right. How do you want to present?
I stuck the presentation link in the slides channel.
You put this presentation in the slides channel. Excellent. By the way, that is an excellent way to